Now, some people have also said that the majority of divorces and domestic violence in relationships happens among lesbian couples. That's actually women who are causing all the problem. So I'm very curious about this. So this is something that I'm going to look up right now, and then I will continue this video. Okay, so it is true. Found this on Reddit. According to the Office for National Statistics in 2019, 56% of same-sex marriages were between women, so it's about half, let's say. However, the divorce rate for lesbians was much higher. So the proportion of divorces caused by lesbians within the same sex is 78%. It's 3 times higher than gay male couples. Now, why is that? This woman replied that women move way too quick emotionally and commitment-wise. Before figuring out who I was, I remember getting hit with, "I'm in love with you," in under a week of meeting more than once. That's why they have that joke about, what does a lesbian bring to our second date? It's a U-Haul. She said this is way too fast and could explain the stats of lesbians sometimes jumping into marriage way too quickly before really exploring compatibility. And again, it's interesting that 56% of same-sex marriages were between women. So women were a little more likely to want to get married. Here's another woman saying, "Not a lesbian, but I have several friends who are. They would agree with you. One of them told me quite wryly the other day, 'Why do we say I love you after the second freaking date all the time?' I once knew a lesbian, and she told me after she had sex with the woman, they automatically entered a relationship." Lesbians are more likely to rush into marriage. And it's kind of a red flag. It might be that, here's someone says, "From what I've seen, lesbians tend to jump into relationships very quickly and progress them quickly. I haven't seen too many marriages, but it's a running joke that lesbians move in with each other after the 3rd date. It's not hard to see that progressing to marriage too quickly and then having those people realize that they weren't actually a good fit after all." But I would think that another factor could be that women just do require to be happy in their relationships or they're going to leave them. And also some women are emotionally like so much work. This is why I have trouble being friends with some women because, like when I used to give a guy my address, if he couldn't find it, he would just figure it out. And women would be like calling me like, "Where did you say? And what do you say?" And when I had my self-love meetup groups, the guys would just come over and the women were afraid to come over. They had to call someone to tell them where they were going. Like, they're just difficult. When I give a woman a boundary, a lot of women get very upset and they end the friendship. Whereas men just say, "Thanks for telling me." So I will say a lot of women are very, very bad with their emotions. Very, very bad. And I think it's good to have a man in a relationship with a woman because men are more willing to let things roll off their shoulder. They're more easygoing. But a man has to really give a woman a good boundary. If like she gets too emotional or she starts rattling off all her problems, let's tell her, "Hey, I'll listen for a minute and then we're going to watch a movie." I would not put up with all that. But the reason they say that women... this one divorce attorney says the reason that the lesbians, she thinks, divorce more is, she says, the same factors as any other relationship: feeling ignored in the marriage, unequal relationship with one partner pulling the weight, adultery and domestic violence. And I could see that 2 women together are really... Yeah, so my friend that is a lesbian, she told me years ago that when she was still dating men, like she and her boyfriend would get in a fight, and then he'd be like, "I think I'm just going to go play some golf. I'll be back in a couple hours." And by the time he got back, they forgot what they were fighting about. It was some frivolous thing. But then she started dating women, and everything changed. Everything had to be discussed for hours. This frivolous little thing, why do you feel that way? Why do you think the sky is blue? Is it this shade or that shade? Why do you think that? Maybe you could have said it this way. Why didn't you say it that way? It would be this long, everything became this long, long thing. And that kind of reminds me of this polyamory event I went to where a couple that had been poly for over 10 years, they were married and had a child, and he had a new lover, and he and this new lover were just very much into going to swinging things. And he got up in the circle one day and he said, you know, I am so tired of processing everything, all these feelings, because his wife had to overprocess everything. He says, I just want to have sex. I'm just tired of all the processing. And that was, I still remember that was just his truth. Like, not everything has to be processed. I met another guy years ago, and he was someone I had talked to who was on a second marriage. And in the second marriage, he and his wife both decided that they were going to discuss everything. They were really going to process every problem. And what he found out after a couple of years of that, he was done with it. It was exhausting to process everything. As opposed to some people who got married, they never even asked each other's body count or why did you get divorced. They're just enjoying each other now in the moment, you know. So sometimes processing everything, being too emotional, it just ruins everything. And it ruins people's relationships because they're over analyzing everything. Like, can you just be in this moment and enjoy this moment and let things go? And I think a lot of women maybe tend to do that. So yeah, thank you for bringing that to my attention. And that explains why some men are very fed up with women. But guys, do not put up with a woman who is emotionally laboring you. Do not put up with that. Do not put up with that. You have to have some backbone and put that in check. I'm not like that, and not all women are like that, but I could see that for women who are like that, if they're overly emotional, if they lack good boundaries, and there was someone else who doesn't give them the boundary that a man would naturally have, because he's going to get bored listening to all that emotional stuff. But these two women are going to keep going on there, so they're going to feed into each other's worst things. Whereas for gay men, what they tend to do is they are very adulterous and they have a lot of flings. And so that's a problem that they often have, but they're willing to put up with it, I think. But in the gay community, you will find a lot more hookups, one-night stands, and I think that can cause hurt feelings too. So, you know, women are more emotional, the men are more sexual. But somehow the men who are more sexual don't end up getting divorced for whatever reason. I don't know. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. That was very interesting.